You're listening to the Social U podcast, sponsored by Social University. Be sure to follow us on our socials listed in the show notes. Now, let's dive in.
If it's going to involve blood and awkward body angles and no, just no.
I'm Becky Johnson.
And I'm Laura Black, and welcome to the Social U podcast.
Today, we have Karen with us straight out of the gate because she was so excited that she just could not wait. We have not been able to podcast in so long that Karen just could not contain herself. And so we are all together. We had a rough few weeks trying to make the schedules work. And in related news, if I sound jet lagged, I am.
It's because you are.
And we've had travel everywhere. So many teammates out. Karen was floundering by herself last week because we all abandoned her in 1 week. And oh my goodness, she held the ship together so well.
Good job, Karen.
Total and complete lies.
She did not even text me one time.
Woohoo!
I texted her a few times, though. I'm like, look, here's a picture of a man in LA on the street dressed like a wizard.
We should also comment on the great backup team that was there picking up slack, too. We love our team, and every single person is awesome, and we appreciate how they fill in the gap when we're gone.
Literally, this past week, Michaela was out some, Jason was out, Laura was out, and I was out. Correct?
Yep.
Was anybody else out?
Of my mind? Yes.
That's a lot.
It's a lot.
I mean, we have a small team, so 4 people. That's like half the team.
That's 50%. Yeah.
And everybody is having their own, like Leah was here, but she has pneumonia. So
what?
Yeah, poor Jaden got stuck with me mostly all week because, I don't do well without adult supervision.
Did you send her some Starbucks?
Should have, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Well, this week, I wanted to talk about something that I know is going to set Karen on fire, but there are some compelling reasons that people have floated this idea, and that is whether or not social media should be taught in schools. So I will give you some of the reasons why people have suggested that it should, and those include things like setting realistic expectations and letting people know, hey, what you see on there isn't real, because for young people, it's very easy to look at these highlight reels and compare their lives and be like, my life is not as good. So part of it was to adjust the expectations. Another part of it was safety, because we know that there are people that are below the age limit that are still on these sites. And so part of it was to teach safety. Don't do this, don't give out this information. Don't turn on your camera if somebody wants to video chat you, don't do all these things. And then another reason, and this is the one that was the funniest to me because I can relate with one of my children, was because there are actually kids who now have decided that they want their career to be influencer or YouTuber. And it's basically to go ahead and give them a head start on best practices and ways to do this, but also to set them up realistically with the expectation that you're not going to probably be rich from this.
Reality check.
Yeah, you might make $10. We talk about my Amazon store sometimes. I think I'm up to $75 now that I've made on Amazon since March.
I made $4. Woo-hoo-hoo.
See, we're not paying bills with that money, but it is fun to have it on the side. It's like some extra blow money, but it's not my job, So, Laura, first, what are your thoughts?
Oh, I can see pros and cons. I'm a list maker, so I want to write it down on a list and be like, well, on this hand, I can see the benefit of that reality check because they don't get it. They don't understand. And you grow up hearing you can do anything you want. You can be anything you want, which is true, but it's not like an instant wish. And our society, especially in America, we're a rich society relatively, it's not that hard to get what you want. And it would be a big reality check for a lot. On the other hand, I don't know. On the other hand, they've got so much going on elsewise. A little bit of internet safety would be amazing. And they probably get a little bit of it, but probably a lot of internet safety would be good. But I don't know how far you'd have to go into the social media side of it. It's because
Far.
it's everywhere. It's all of it. It's the internet, the web browsing, all the social media apps, it could be a general thing too. So I'd want to deep dive on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I look back at things that we were taught in high school, and like we had typing class on an actual typewriter,
Yeah.
and we learned how to make like business letters
I love typing class. I'm such a nerd.
and
Yeah.
all of these
Me
things
too.
that are just completely outdated now. Now you send email instead of typing out this cover letter,
How to
Mhm.
write a check, how to
how to
address an
write a
envelope.
check. And it's like, I feel like these are things that could be useful.
Mhm.
Like I said, I've got one kid, my 10-year-old is convinced that he can just be a famous YouTuber if he just tries.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's a lot of people trying real hard, putting money into it. We talked about on another episode those Cocomelon people. They blew up, but they did it for years and years and years, putting out like
Mhm.
a video every day or something for years before they blew up.
Yeah.
Most people aren't going to be able to sustain that in the 7 years it takes for you to finally get traction.
Yeah.
What
I
about you,
think it's,
Karen?
I think it's an absolute necessity to teach kids online safety. I think it's critical, and we are missing an opportunity to do it. I think part of the reason we have sex education is to examine long-term ramifications of your decisions. You need to understand that a decision you make today when you're 14 can haunt your tracks at 34.
Mhm.
And again, I think that is exactly why sex education is taught. It's for their own safety. This is the same thing. And
Mhm.
it's just as physically demanding as it is mentally demanding. And I think the mental side is worse because a lot of kids now are dealing with cyberbullying.
Mhm.
They are dealing with imposter syndrome because they have unrealistic expectations because they do not understand what they're seeing is not real. And they do not understand that that one random comment that they make is going to last forever.
Oh, yeah. I think that that is a good comparison that you drew there with the sex education,
Mhm.
because people that are against this are afraid that it will make more kids want to be on social media. They already want to be on social media, even the ones that aren't allowed on it. They already want to be on it. And like sex education has never made any kid want to have sex more.
No.
Because when you learn about the realities of something, it's less attractive than it was beforehand, and I feel like this is the same way. It may not make them not wanna be on there, but I feel like some of the glamour of it will fade away when they see the reality. When you show them numbers.
Give you a realistic understanding. 9% of people who are on social media, of all the millions of people, consider themselves to be influencers. And only 48% of those, so roughly what, 4.5%, make money. And
Yeah.
it doesn't say that they make enough money to live. They may be pulling in the big bucks like $4 every 6 months, like we are. So just because they're making money doesn't mean they're making money enough to function independently.
And when you look at the averages, the average will look low, and you have to remember that those averages are being averaged with all YouTubers. So like Mr. Beast, Dan TDM, when they do averages, those people, their income that they make is included in that. So
Mhm.
for every Mr. Beast and Dan TDM, there's like a million kids making 20 cents. And
Mhm.
then you average it all together and it's like, oh, you can make $150 a month doing
Sure.
this, like average. I'm like, no, you cannot.
Mm-mm.
That is taking two very extreme ends of the spectrum and averaging them together. And it definitely will look like you can make more based on the millions of dollars a few people are making.
I went the same direction as you did, Karen, because I was thinking the sex education thing too. Because if they don't know how to be protected, we're not helping them at all. Our kids even got computer classes in elementary school, and I wonder if internet safety was part of it. Now I don't remember, and I
Yeah.
would think probably not because they would be restricted down at schools anyway.
Yep.
Where has that evolved until now? And like our high school has a brand new P Tech program, which is pretty cool, state of the art, all of that. So I would expect they have something on it, but what about all the other, 90, 80% of the school that doesn't go through that pathway? So they may cover a little and say they are, but is
Well,
everybody getting it?
and abstinence is not an option
Mm-mm.
with the internet.
Right.
They're
everywhere.
going
They
to
use it for school.
They use it for school.
Right.
And let me tell you, my kid, clever. He figured out how to backdoor his app to get to where he wanted to go.
Oh, yeah.
I had restrictions on his phone and I checked his phone very periodically, but he still would get one up on me here and there because he figured out that you could take the Shazam app and backdoor it to get to YouTube.
Yep.
With no restriction on it.
Oh, yeah. Mine's figured out a few other things too, and they can just do it.
Yeah. And you have to look at the safety part of it. As an organization, as a company, as a person, we are very supportive of domestic violence survivors and women who are struggling to escape a negative situation or other women who are being trafficked. That being said, I watched a video documentary about To Catch a Predator online. The woman that they used as their profile person was in her 20s, easily close to 30, but she looked very young. So when they very first started,
me. You don't have to laugh that hard.
So I'll make any comments. So when they first started the experiment, they had her like 16, 17, and she had many, many direct messages from predators. So they decided, well, 17, 16, that's old enough for the person who's the predator to say, I thought it was legal. I thought she was 18. So they took software and de-aged her to 12. 12. And of course, she's an FBI agent. She knows exactly how to talk to predators online. And they had an entire team of people who are going through her socials. They set her up on a social system. They gave her an Instagram. They couldn't keep up with the direct messages. It was less than 30 seconds before she got her first sexual DM. And then it was game on. They're like, okay, what if she's 9? It got worse. So there are predators who are lurking online, constantly trolling for your children. They have got to be protected. And if they are not going to learn it in school, for the love of Pete, teach it yourself.
At my middle schooler's school, they did have a talk about cyberbullying and internet safety, but it was literally on one of those days, like once a week, the counselor comes in and talks to the class. Which is really cool. They didn't do that when I was in school. Once a week, the counselor comes in and talks to the class about all these issues that they could be having. And it was one of those. It was like one day they talked about cyberbullying and being safe on the internet. And that was it.
A one-day thing.
And that's not enough. When I was in school, the only counselor we had was the guidance counselor that literally just helped you figure out what you wanted to be when you grow up and helped get you in college. I don't even think we had like emotional support guidance counselors. And my kids love their counselor and they see them every week and they know their whole story. They do go to a very small school. And I think that makes a difference.
That is cool.
When I was in school, if you were awkward, you was just awkward. Like I was just awkward.
And if you got bullied, you got bullied. And if you got beaten up after school, you got beaten up after school. I have multiple traumatic incidences because no adult, I'm Gen X, we were feral. Nobody intervened on our behalf. Nobody. I lied. I misled my employer about my age so I could start working when I was 15. Nobody checked. Nobody cared.
No, nobody cared.
My first job, I was paid under the table when I was 15 years old. They paid me in an envelope full of cash every week.
Yeah, that sounds right. And you turn into the parent you wish you had. I think is pretty normal. And my child is older now. He is 20. But because of what we do, I've been tuned into this for a while. So I have been adamantly telling him this has long-reaching effects. This has long-term implications. What the decision you make today will last forever. And after watching me do this for years and years and years, he got it. But how many kids, parents don't know. Don't know to tell that.
I feel like we are more in tune with it because we do it for a living. And so we are on social media all the time. There are so many people parenting age that don't do social media that have no idea what it's like for their kids.
Yeah.
And it's not because they're bad parents. It's because they just don't know.
Or they're working so hard. I mean, parenting is so hard to make ends meet. They're working their tails off and it's exhausting and things fall through the cracks. And sadly, if you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah. And you have parents who don't even know how to navigate Snapchat. They don't know how to go look to see what's happening, let alone monitor what their child is doing. One of my close friends, as our kids were growing up, she's like, where do I go on Instagram? I'm like, check drafts, check saved, go to DMs. She's like, okay. But I think it's pretty normal for other parents not to know. Now, as people move forward, my son knows. My mom would never have known in a million years to check my browser history. And I was one of the few parents when he was 11 that knew how to check a browser. Like I could go into the deleted files and pull it out.
Yeah.
Most parents can't do that. So I think now as kids are maturing and getting into relationships and getting ready to have their own kids, they are much more technically savvy and they do have that experience to speak into it. But there's a gap. And the kids right now that are in high school need help now.
Mm-hmm. I will say our school district has done a few times a cyber night for parents.
Ooh, good.
For the ones who want to learn and can make it. And of course you can't, your schedule always doesn't permit, but which has been really good. They had police officers there. They had other things. So at least trying to get some word out to any parent that would listen.
I think we just figured out what our next YouTube series of tutorials needs to be. How to check your kids' browser history, how to check your kids' Snapchat, how to do all the things that the parents may not know to do, how to look for apps that say that there's something that are actually something else. That's another one. Remember the calculator app that was actually not a calculator app?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Guess what? October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month.
Oh. Look at us being on trend.
I think that's a great idea to have a safety playlist. And I think we do need to get on that. I love that idea. Love it. Yeah. FBI is now saying child predators, specifically sexual predators, don't have to get on the dark web like they used to because a lot of the images they are using are on Instagram. Because parents are posting images before their child is at the age of consent that are not appropriate for public consumption. Even swimsuit pictures with AI are super dangerous because they are. And just protect your kids.
This is stuff they could learn in this class, but also think about the business implications that they could learn. Things like, hey, these are things that employers look for when you go to get a job on your social media. They will look at your social media, whether you think they will or not, whether the job has anything to do with the internet or not. They will look at your social media.
Yeah. And people
these are things that'll keep you from getting jobs.
Yep, absolutely.
That's how I knew there was any modicum of success. Heads up for parents who drive carpool. If you're a new parent or if you're new to carpool, they forget you're alive. And they'll just talk to each other. They spill their guts.
Oh, yes.
If you don't say anything and they're in the back seat, they will spill their guts. So I'm driving carpool. Love carpool. I drove everybody home, his entire high school, the whole thing, because it really clues you into what's happening in their life. And girls report differently than boys. I would get hey, how was school? And my son's like, it was fine. And the girl's like, oh my gosh, we had to go into lockdown today. I'm like,
yeah.
So they're driving and they're talking to each other. And one boy is showing my child something he posted on Instagram and how funny he thought it was. And my son was horrified and said, you can't post that online. He said, why not? He said, it lasts forever. You're going to want a job one day. You can't say that.
Good job, kid.
I thought, good job. I mean, immediately. And to this day, he has a very limited digital footprint. Yeah. You'd be hard pressed to find his name and face together on any platform.
I love those stories because I feel like the three of us have, despite our craziness, produced some super amazing kiddos. One of my favorite stories is my kid was in this group chat with a whole bunch of other kids. Your kid was probably in there too, Karen. They were in this group chat, boys and girls. And one of the boys, who shall remain nameless, but was not your kid or my kid, posted something very inappropriate. It was a meme, but it was very, very inappropriate. And it was very sexual. And my kid says, "Hey, not in this chat. That's not cool." And
Mhm.
my kid did not tell me about it. One of the other parents of a kid in the group chat told me about it because they were checking their kid's phone that day, and they were like, "You're going to want to know that your kid told this kid that putting this like sexual meme in the group chat was inappropriate and to not do it anymore." And I was like,
That's
even when I'm not looking, he's being good.
such a good feeling. Oh my goodness, to know they're actually paying a little bit of attention, because mine are two completely different, and one responds with a lot of words, and one might respond with grunts. So that's so refreshing. That does your heart so good.
My son had a friend in school who made inappropriate threats through Instagram DMs. It was a group, and two of the boys said, "Look at these, dangerous, dangerous, enough for me to go to the school and get him out of there. Dangerous, where you're worried for their safety, but thank the Lord they said something about it."
Yeah.
First and foremost, it protected the other kids. But secondly, it allowed the authorities to give the child who made the threats the mental, medical attention that he needed.
And
Yeah.
that's scary because how many times does that not happen? And then you have a disaster happen.
That's that whole open door thing. They can't be afraid to tell you stuff. Like my generation grew up, we just lied better.
Because nobody cared. Nobody
cared.
even wanted to know if we were lying. As
Or
long
you-
as we weren't causing trouble for them, they were happy.
Yeah. Are you throwing up? Are you on fire? Are you bleeding? No, I don't care.
You didn't get arrested. You don't have
Okay.
any diseases. Great. Don't care.
Dude, even if you did get arrested, they're like, "You're only 17. It'll fall
Kids
off."
will be kids.
So, yeah. Okay, flip it to another foot. There's several celebrities that I follow, and they tag their little bitty kids. Like, they have their own accounts, and they might be private accounts, but it's like they're creating this digital scrapbook for their kids for in the future, because I've clicked on some to see, okay, how locked down is this? And they're restricted. You have to request and be approved to follow, but that's kind of risky to me.
So, speaking of inappropriate things on the internet,
Oh no.
for social media this week, I wanted to talk about ways to get your videos demonetized on YouTube. Have you ever been watching a video and you'll see the person say something like, "Oh, never mind, I can't say that, I'll get demonetized." Or it's like a try on haul and they're like going to change shirts and they're like, "Wait, let me come over here because even though I've got this like sports bra on, I don't want to risk getting demonetized." So I found an article from vidIQ about all of the different reasons that you can be demonetized. And I wanted to just talk about some of them.
Hit me.
So the first one is being spammy, deceptive, or participating in scams. So if you repeatedly post content about making fast cash, or you lead viewers to websites that have like malware, or you're using clickbait, things like that can get you demonetized. A big one that should get you demonetized and does is hate speech.
Oh yeah.
So if you say, "Get out there and punch a blah, blah, blah," or if you say, "Everyone in blah, blah, blah group is a criminal," or "People blah, blah, blah are less intelligent than us because their brains are smaller."
This gender, this race, this color, this proclivity is less than because they are yeah. Okay.
All of the so-called victims of this violent event are actors. No one was hurt, and this is just a false flag.
Yeah, don't think that's carries any weight. There's a guy who's paying reparations right now because he said that stupid stuff on his radio show.
And he should be.
He should be. You cannot look at a grieving parent whose child was shot in a school shooting and say you think it's a fraud. Why would you do that to the poor parents? Yeah.
Even video game content that's been modded to promote violence or hatred against a specific group, they'll demonetize. Okay,
Good.
Next, profanity. Now, if you're using like the H word or the D word, they're not going to demonetize you. But if you have a whole bunch of F bombs or you're constantly calling somebody a B word, or these four things will get you immediately demonetized, and that is the C word,
Oh,
the FAGGOT word, the N word, and other racial slurs will immediately get you demonetized.
There is absolutely no occasion that it would be okay to use any of those.
no.
I am horrified and disappointed that people today still use the N word.
My kid tells me, he's in middle school. He tells me that kids on his bus use that word. And he is in
Really?
middle school. And
And in
it's shocking
Ohio.
to me. Yeah, it's shocking to me.
They're learning it at home.
And it's white kids. It's not black kids saying this to one another as like a bro term. This is
Right.
white kids on the bus saying the N word.
And sometimes women will call each other a bitch, which I don't think is endearing. I mean,
Hey,
if
don't
I call you that, it's because you're
parent.
being one, Karen.
to be fair, I have been called so in my life.
There's just never any need. I mean, come on. We're professional people. If you're going to put it out there, be professional and stop it.
But even so, I think that has far less impact and long reaching ramifications than the N word.
Uh-huh.
But I wouldn't say either. That horrifies me.
Yep.
I literally just heard a story from a friend of mine here in Ohio this week about the racism that she faced when she was growing up. And being from Alabama and being from Birmingham, the seat of the civil rights movement, it's easy to think that the way that you are taught about it in school, it's like all of that stuff happened in the South, and up north, people are more enlightened and none of that stuff happened. She was in Pennsylvania and just got a real rough time of it.
Oh, yeah.
And she's younger than me. This is not like in the 70s or something. This is like in the 2000s.
There's no excuse. There's no excuse for it.
Showing dangerous or illegal activities. So showing drug use, firearms, internet hacking, any criminal or questionable activities, anything glorifying dangerous acts will result in demonetization.
Like encouraging someone to jump off a bridge.
Yeah.
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 That was terrible.
That was terrible.
Sexually explicit content. I think we all know that one is demonetization immediately. So any video that gratifies sex, has nudity, sex scenes, pornography, any of those things will get you demonetized.
So can the hint of those things, even if it's not correct, sometimes the software will tag it, even if it's wrong, and you have to prove that you're not doing that.
I will say it was interesting to me that you can have a completely innocuous video, but if your thumbnail looks like it may be sexual or something, they will demonetize you based solely on the thumbnail or the description. You have to make sure that your thumbnail doesn't look inappropriate or they will demonetize the whole video.
What kind of racy thumbnails you doing, Becky?
Hey.
I mean,
y'all know I have a funny little dog. Boy, she can lay provocatively. So, I mean, you could be so innocent, and there you go.
I love those when they're like, this would be my dog's Tinder picture. That's
exactly.
Yeah.
I have a really good one for my dog, and you're just like, oh, you got to be kidding me. But
we need to do those with our work pets on one of our Instagram posts. That would be funny.
Like we do.
Our pets' Tinder pics.
Yeah, my dog's dating profile.
Another one is when you use copyrighted material, obviously. If you're not using royalty-free music, they can demonetize you, or they can split your monetization with the creator who you are using their material.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Cyberbullying, that kind of goes along with the racial slurs, threatening people, even if you're bluffing.
But
and posting any piece of content. You'll like this, Karen. You're supposed to be demonetized if you post any piece of content to shame a minor.
Good.
Awesome.
That is an instant demonetization. So if these parents are doing this for the money, maybe that will help because they're not going to make any money off that.
What qualifies as bullying?
Bullying on here, it says name calling, threats are the most common, saying racial slurs or writing them as comments. Any sort of harassment leads to demonetization.
Okay. I was just wondering what is considered bullying for demonetization versus what I would actually consider bullying.
And again, these are on vidIQ. We'll put the link to this article in the description if anybody wants to look it up because there's a lot more in here than what I'm saying. The next one is shocking or disturbing videos, and that is listed as gory visuals of body parts, body fluids, or waste, raw footage of medical procedures such as unedited birth videos,
Oh,
disturbing or gruesome injuries, and wild animal preparation for eating or slaughter.
why? Why
No
would you
blood.
do
No
that?
blood. Thank you. No,
Now,
no.
listen, not like gory or graphic, but anytime I have ever had to have a surgery, I have looked it up on YouTube to see what I'm getting myself into.
I can't watch horror movies. I don't want to see the real thing ever.
Yeah. And it will demonetize you because it can be like triggering and shocking for people if they click on it and don't realize that they're about to see that.
Oh,
Showing
gosh.
graphic violence in your video will demonetize you.
Do you remember the Faces of Death video series?
100% yes.
Yeah, those are on YouTube.
I was watching a video one time that was listed as a news video about some of the stuff that was going on in the Middle East. And it literally showed a close up of this lady getting shot, falling down, and then blood's coming out of her mouth. And she died.
No,
And
thank
I'm
you.
like, I would not have clicked on that if I had known. I thought I was going to be watching the news about this event.
Oh my goodness.
TikTok's gotten a lot better about monitoring that kind of violation. And now you'll get trigger warning, even if they're just telling a story about, like, let's say domestic violence. Even if they're relaying a story, they'll tell you before you watch it so you're not triggered in the video. I don't want to see that ever. I never want to see that.
You
No.
can't unsee it once you see
No.
it. Like I can
I-
still picture that lady's face in my brain, and
This
I
goes
don't like
back
that.
to, we need to have some warnings. If they're going to allow some of that, put a big old warning to begin with.
I don't want to see anybody being eaten by anything. I don't
Uh-uh.
want to see accidental damage. The footage from the football game, I'm not a football person, but there was some sort of footage where one of the players was injured and his knee bent the other way. I don't want to see that. I
That
never
hurts me
wanna
just
see that.
thinking about it.
I know. Oh no. Really.
They list on here that the violence is general violence that displays blood, guts, and gore, animal or human, gaming clips edited to show gory violence, war footage that includes shooting, explosions, bombings, injuries, and death, dead bodies and amputations, any form of animal abuse, police brutality, and violence in sports. So there's your sports one.
Gross.
Yeah. If it's
I
going to
love
involve blood and awkward body angles and no, just no.
I love that they have the new tent that they take out on the field so that you can't see what's happening, and it gives the player privacy to deal with whatever injury they're experiencing.
I have not seen that. That's
I have
great.
not seen that either.
I want to say they're yellow, but when they go out on the field to check them out, and they put that little tent up, because that may be the worst moment of their life. I don't think 1,000 people should get to see it
Right.
live.
And in this day and age, our cameras are so good. People zoom in there and ew.
So, like, even in high school and little league, you know how when somebody gets hurt and then they stand up and they're walking off the field and both sides are cheering for them. I know that that is supposed to be like really sweet and stuff, but I feel like if I was that person, that would make me so self-conscious and so embarrassed to have everybody cheering for me walking off the field.
Yep.
Like, I would just want to be like, everybody just forget what you just saw.
Gross.
But some people maybe like it. I don't know. Another demonetization is videos that are not safe for minors. So that goes back already to a lot of the things we've talked about: dangerous activities that can cause them harm, sexually explicit content, and sexually explicit content featuring minors, especially misleading family content that shows violence and sexual themes, emotionally distressing content that shows parental abuse and coercion of minors, and cyberbullying and harassment of minors. So any of those things are demonetized.
Why would you post that?
So the last thing on here, there's a couple more things, but I'm going to put them all together, is controversial issues. And they're not talking about what some people may think of as controversial issues. They're talking about things that talk about self-harm or sexual abuse, pedophilia, sexual harassment, eating disorders, things like that. And even if it happens in the title or the thumbnail, if it seems to be glorifying these topics, it'll be demonetized. So you may have a video about how bad your eating disorder was and how it hurt you and how other people can not go through this thing and to help people. But if the thumbnail is a super skinny girl being like, here's how I had my eating disorder. Like they can demonetize it because it looks like it's glorifying it.
I do have a lot of respect for survivors who want to help other survivors.
Mm-hmm. And then the last one is, it goes along with that to me, and that is sensitive events or topics. So if you post a video about 9/11, even if you're not showing actual death and destruction, it could possibly get demonetized just because of the topic, just because it's a sensitive event or topic. So that is the gist of demonetization on YouTube. So if you want to be monetized, don't do those things. Or if you want to just be a decent human, don't do those things.
If you just want to be a decent human being.
If you have to wonder, might I get canceled for this? Maybe take a different route.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, people make mistakes. People make mistakes. I get it.
Yeah.
But if you are an empathetic, I think most people are good. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think most people aren't out to hurt other people. And mistakes happen. I get that, but come on.
My first ever video on YouTube, if you go look at my YouTube channel and scroll all the way back to video number 1, it's me getting my nose pierced. Is that graphic violence?
No.
Well,
it's literally, it's so fast, and you can't even see the needle or anything because the person is kind of standing back from me, and you just see like hands on my face like this, and you just see me squint real big for a second, and then it's over. But that was my first video.
My mom tried to get me to watch her knee surgery for years. Gross, Teresa.
No, thank you.
When my son was much younger and we were at Children's Hospital, for some reason, he'd never had blood work before. And going into the room, you could see it. You could see the light bulb go off where he's like, wait a minute. How do they get the blood out of your body?
Oh, no.
And then that whole, it's a teeny tiny little, he flipped out.
So listen, my husband don't listen to this podcast anyway, so I will tell all the stories about him. He's like, I listen to your voice enough. I don't need to hear it in a recording. When he was like 12, the doctor had to chase him down the hallway, and he locked himself in the bathroom to avoid getting a shot. 12 years old. This is why my husband has 0 tattoos. He'll be a man now when he has to get blood work or something, or if he has to get a shot, he won't say nothing. He'll just sit there and get it done, and you will think he is completely fine. But that man hates needles to this day.
Mine will drop like passes out. Boom.
To be fair, I think most women have a higher pain tolerance just across the board. And to prove this, have you seen the cramp stimulators?
Oh, yes. Those are some of my favorite videos. We need to get Jason to do one of those with us. So we can do like the female versus male and see who can go longer, like Jaden or Jason.
I saw one. It was a brother and a sister. And he said, I'm going to eat a cookie. And she's so cavalier. I think it was on 2. And he flipped out and crushed all the cookies and fell on the floor. And she's sitting there eating her cookie. He's like, it's on 10. It's on 10. It's on 10. She's like, oh, okay. Eating her cookie.
She's like, yeah, every month I'm on 10. Every month I'm on 12. Like,
wash dishes, drive to school, do homework. Like, they have no idea. There was one guy who was, women just make a big deal. It's an excuse, blah, blah. So his wife or girlfriend, I can't remember which way, got a simulator and hooked him up and showed the testing. And then the next thing, he's on camera. I would like to apologize to all the women who I've offended because this is horrible. And I'm so sorry. I do want to make an announcement for the victims of the hurricane who have been so tragically affected in North Carolina, Tennessee, and Georgia. There is an online personality, Jamie B. Golden, who has a very popular podcast called The Popcast. And she has pledged to match dollar for dollar every contribution that's made through Water Mission. And they are on Instagram. You can locate them through her account, Jamie B. Golden, or The Popcast. And the mission is water_mission. And they are activating to take supplies to these areas that have been victimized. And I love that she is dollar matching. So you get a bigger bang for your buck. We're in Alabama. She's in Alabama. I know it's local, and I know that the money's getting into the hands of the right people to do good, which I love. So if you need information about how to help or volunteer to assist with the Georgia, Tennessee, North Carolina victims and survivors, that's a great place to start.
I love that, Jamie.
Love the
Thank you,
podcast. I love Knox. I love Jamie. I've been a longtime follower, but to me, they just keep getting better and better.
And she's not just scripted funny. Like, she's funny
She's
off the
funny.
cuff in real life. Like, in conversation, she is hilarious.
Oh, you can catch their live show where they're, I mean, I know some of it's scripted because Knox is Knox, but a lot of it is off the cuff and it's so funny. They're so great. So yeah, always, always the podcast is amazing. To love that they're local, and I love supporting local, but yeah, she's also trying to do good for the victims. And the show is also clean. Usually it is safe for kids and adults and work. And if
She
it's
loves
not,
Jesus.
they do. And if it's not going to be safe, they will title it "Not Safe for Jamie's Mom." So,
And then, even then, it's safer than most.
yeah, there's no profanity. It's the kind of thing you could listen to during your carpool ride, and you wouldn't have to be worried about what your kids hear.
Yeah, speaking of, I've had the unfortunate experience recently of listening to my audiobook without wearing my AirPods for some reason because I'm like dumb or something. And of course, right as my kids walk in, this book decides to say every cuss word ever. And it has not, thus far in the book, said any cuss words. And then my kids walk in and then they're like, "What are you listening to?" And I'm like, you know what? I don't even know.
That's
I don't know what just happened.
It always happens like that. Always.
Sipping social tea this week. This is one. Fortunately, we don't have to deal with this because we're a social media company. But imagine if you were not a social media company, if you were just a social media person for an organization. It says, "One of my coworkers complained that they couldn't figure out how to post for our account. Did you think that just anyone could post on a business account? What exactly were you going to do? You have nothing to do with social media, buddy. Please step back." Can you imagine like some random person coming up to you and being like, "Hey, I was trying to post on our business account and couldn't figure out how." Yeah, thank God.
Sure, it'd be like me going to my bookkeeper and saying, "Hey, I have a calculator. I'm an accountant and I'm going to balance your books." No, you're not.
Oh, it's so easy. Anybody can do it. If it was that easy, everybody would be doing it, and everybody would be an influencer, and everybody would be rich.
This Ratatouille principle. Not everybody's a great social media manager, but a great social media manager can come from anywhere. But I'm not going to hand over the reins to some rando who walks up to me in the hallway.
Who's wanting to post their PDF on Facebook?
No. Take a step back.
Calm down, buddy. This has been so fun because we have not gotten to do this in a couple of weeks, and I have missed you guys and talking about fun and crazy stuff. And next week, we will be less tired. Thanks for listening to the Social U podcast, sponsored by Social University. We'll see you next week.